Well, good morning and good evening to everybody. We've got Mark. You can see him. We don't often do videos. Hello, Mark. Give him a big wave from down under. Is it Melbourne, Mark?
Yeah, I'm in Melbourne. 7 p.m. on I don't know what day it is anymore. It's like we're isolated in this thing. It's either Tuesday.
So anyway, well, good day to everybody. Now, Mark has very kindly come on today because he wanted to share with you the trials and tribulations of working with a remote team. And I think we're all learning fast. I've got a few questions for Mark. I've obviously seen the PowerPoint that Mark's going to present to us, and we'll just chat our way through it. But the one I really find it challenging, and I don't think anyone's cracked it yet, is how do you supervise trainees remotely? That's the big outstanding. And we've got to get our head around that, because without the young blood coming through the profession, Mark, I'm really not sure we've got anywhere to go. The good news is this profession is doing pretty well in terms of a business model. The clients are turning to us more than any other advisor, saying, look, what am I supposed to do now? Can you give me some guidance, some handle on my cash flow, can I get a loan? Can I be furloughed? Or how does it all work? And we've got the skill base, as luck would have it, to take care of our clients in their hour of need. So look, Mark, why don't I just pass over the control panel to you, and you can take us through, and I'll just chat through some of the stuff with you. But basically, it's your people want to hear what you've got to say on this, Mark.
No, that's fine. Look, and normally my thing is offshoring, so we're not going to talk offshoring today, but what we do in our offshoring business is identical to what you would do when you're trying to run a remote team locally. So I'll get through a few introductory slides and some background, probably a few bad jokes and things like that, and we'll get into the nuts and bolts of it. And Gordon, you and I have done a couple of masterminds in recent days, so we already sort of have an idea. We know most accounting firms are actually handling it pretty well. None of us have really got out of it unscathed. We've taken a bruising, most of us, but as far as industry goes, we're done pretty well. In our firm here in Australia, we've been able to charge for work around government grants and government help and things like that. And Australia and UK have handled it fairly similar. So let's just crack through some of this. 3 problems. Obviously, the virus. For firms out there, all our dust-covered disaster recovery plans have definitely been tested in full. I'm assuming you had the disaster recovery plan. A couple of years ago, I drilled our HR team on our company's disaster recovery plan, and I was thinking flood, fire, earthquake, that type of thing, but never thought of it as a virus. But our team were all clear, like in case of a disaster, we work at home. So that's been in our plans for many years, and I just never thought a bug would be the thing. So
Mark,
yes, mate.
Are you thinking about your accounting firm or the offshoring business in Manila?
Both the same. So our accounting team. So we've got an accounting firm in Melbourne plus the offshoring business in Manila. Our accounting team is in that business up in Manila, so exactly the same. So if you've got, so in the early days we had to deal with disaster recovery around internet and things like that really early on when I first went to the Philippines nearly a decade ago, and it was as simple as we would just go out of the office into an internet cafe and work from there because we were cloud based, and that we had to do that from time to time. Sometimes we had to deal with flood in the Philippines, and same thing, the staff would work at home during a flood. And so we've been doing this for a long time. I've just never done it off the back of a virus, and obviously to this level. So second thing I've noticed in recent weeks and months, everyone's now an expert biologist. My son's a plumber. He's a very good plumber. He's built a good business that deals with construction jobs. He's got no scientific or medical background, but he does have strong opinions on how the health issue ought to be managed. And all you've got to do is turn on the news and you can see the rate of growth of new biology experts is faster than the COVID infections themselves. You're not going to get any opinions from me today on the health issue, the health side of it. And the third one, which I find quite irritating as well, turning on most people don't know how to juggle their own bank account. Those very same people seem to have the solutions to an extremely complex economic situation. And it's just in the UK and Australia, we're really similar in how the virus hit and also how our governments intervened, very similar. But I don't know of any economics textbook where supply and demand both went to zero simultaneously, which is what happened in those first few weeks of this virus. And short of government intervention, it would have continued. So there's no time for us regular people to theorise on the complex workings of the world economy when the smartest people in the world have no idea themselves. So back to our businesses, we're either going to roll over and let our businesses get killed, or we're going to do what we can to see the other side of this mess. I can give you guys over in the UK some encouragement too, that in Australia, we got shut down in a very strict way here. You know, the borders got locked down very quickly. Even domestically, we're not allowed to travel. We were locked down in our homes. It's similar to yourselves, only allowed out for food, but we're down to sort of 10 cases a day, give or take. We've got about 30 cases in hospital nationwide in Australia. And normally I live in the Philippines, but I got stuck here through this situation. So what I'm seeing now here is businesses are starting to go back to normal. I guess normal, there are restrictions and differences, but they are opening up again, which is good. Some of our hardest hit clients are now getting back to work. And I'm going to assume that the UK won't be far behind that if you're not already doing it.
So Mark, you kindly joined a couple of the managing partner focus groups a week or so back.
Yep.
And we were commenting on some of the stuff you were doing, which is why you kindly agreed to do the webinar with us. But do you remember I talked about one of the big 4 managing partners doing 3 videos? So just to pick up the point that Mark was saying, that this is a marketplace that none of us really, if we're honest, knows why it happened, what's going to happen, and we just have to cross each bridge as we get to it. So much so that this managing partner of a big 4, I'll remind you, so he's got access to information that most of us would dream of, and he's got brain power available to him, again, which most of us would say, yeah, if he's got all of that information and all of this knowledge and skills, then presumably they come up with something that's going to be fairly viable. But it turns out that with all the best will in the world and all the best data in the world and all the best brains in the world, he came up with 3 videos in 6 weeks, actually 6 weeks. The first one, when this thing all struck, was, oh my goodness me, I'm not sure what's going to happen here, and this video went out to 30-odd thousand staff, so try to remember that, please. So the whole UK army got the same message on the same day. And it was a comfort, a reassurance video saying, even if it's going to get a little bit tough for us, don't you worry, the partners will cough up. They will, they'll take the hit. So that was right at the beginning. And I think at that time, Mark and other accounting firms were a bit fearful, and we furloughed and we cut costs and we looked at cash flow when we turned open our disaster recovery plans, and all quite right. And then 3 weeks later, based on new information and new changes and new ideas, he released a completely different, only 3 weeks, a completely different video saying, actually, chaps, got this slightly wrong. Looks like we're going to do rather well. So in fact, we are looking at our clients, and we've decided to get rid of some of our less profitable clients so that we've got time to spend with our better clients. So that sounded like a good idea. And then last week, or actually 2 weeks ago now, he released another video that said, actually, chaps, got that one slightly wrong as well. We're going to have a stonker, an absolute stonker. And here are the new house rules for holiday, so that we can definitely be available for when our clients need us most. And then he rolled off the new house rules for holidays, which, well, I'll tell you what they were. And I think we'll all say, well, that seems a bit steep. But so it was something like, if you've got a holiday booked but you can't go to Spain anymore, I'm afraid you just have to take your holiday at home. So you can't unravel what you've already booked. If you get to halfway through the year, you should have taken half your holiday. There is no carry forward. If you get to Christmas, which we all hope you will do, these are the 5 days you have to take off, and there's no carry forward of any days whatsoever into 2021, and nobody can take any time off in September at all. And I say that, Mark, because it wasn't so much the draconian message that, which actually is quite interesting in its own right. It was the fact, the point you were saying, that even the best brains in the world cannot possibly anticipate what's coming next. We can all guess, but nobody knows, Mark.
Absolutely. And just watching the government come out each day. Yeah, I know you guys had Boris out there every day doing press conferences. We've had the same thing here in Australia, and they had no idea. It turns out the government badly underestimated or overestimated the impact of it, and so I think it was to the tune of $60 billion in government handouts don't need to be paid out now because they overestimated the impact of the virus itself, and it's a real mess. And people are quite critical of the government, and it's like, well, no one's ever done this before. Yeah, ease up. So yeah, I agree. I just got to play it almost for a while. It was sort of hour by hour, and it's settled down at the moment. So hopefully it continues. So I'm monitoring the data each day in the UK.
Well,
US,
Mark, why don't you pop your credentials on the table and give us your thoughts?
Yeah. So look, for those who don't know me, I mean, a lot of the guys have met me. I've been coming to the 2020 events for years, since 2014, I think 2015. I've been over there. So I'm now a citizen of the UK. No idea why they let me in. Also a chartered accountant in Australia and also the UK and Wales. Run an accounting firm in Australia with my partner, John. We also run, which is what we're mainly known for, is an offshoring business that employs several hundred staff, which work for dozens of accounting firms around the world. A lot of firms in the UK use that service. And then for 3 years in a row, we ranked in the fastest 100 companies listed in Australia, where our head office is. I wrote the book on offshoring, and I know how to run remote teams because we've been doing it for nearly a decade. So before we ever had an offshoring business, our accounting firm was run using remote staff. So we've been doing this since day one. It's not that complicated, but there are some tricks and tips to it that if you don't get it right, can really, you're going to have a lot of problems. So we had to, when the virus first blew up, we had to transition 300 staff to working at home, which was no easy thing, but our management team did a great job. 150 plus desktop computers were transferred to the homes of staff, plus a bunch of laptops, and we just did whatever we had to do to keep working. Our team are calling 300 staff on a regular basis to stay in touch. So it's another thing that I think a lot of people are missing through this, and I actually don't think I've covered it in the presentation. It's probably worth mentioning. I see a lot in the media now about the new normal is to work at home and how great it is to work at home. I don't see it that way. I think a lot of people, it's nice for a while, but it can get lonely, and a lot of people like working with their colleagues. Maybe they don't, but working with a good team and good colleagues makes a world of difference in a job. And I think managing that social aspect of it and the camaraderie is going to be really important. I haven't actually covered it in this today, but
well, Mark, it's probably worth 2 minutes of our time, isn't it? Just to touch on that, because we've done some research, Mark. Now, actually, 2020, we've surveyed some of our members, who in turn have surveyed some of their team members to ask them, what's your position on going back to the office? So the first thing that came out, which may or may not surprise you, is that the more junior team members were more inclined to want to go back to the office, and the administrative non-fee earning staff, those are very strong, I'd like to be back in the office feeling. But the more senior the fee earner, the less inclined they were. Sorry, they were okay with staying at home for some, and the most senior, the most autistic, in fact, the tax gods of this world, they are perfectly a company with their own company and had no real desire to pile back in the office unless it was absolutely required. So I think it's quite interesting that there was that. And then there was, subject to, of course, this new era of social distancing. So, some firms have got a lift. They're on the 23rd floor in London. And you just can't get there right now, because unless you put one or two people in a lift or give them gas masks, I don't know how they're going to crack that one.
Yeah,
so there's that.
and that's an unknown we've got to deal with in the Philippines, because commuting is going to be quite dangerous for the staff. So we don't want them being in any danger, of course. I think the office is quite easy to manage, but that getting to and from work, that's going to be problematic. It's like getting on the tube in London.
Yeah,
How the hell do you stay distant? It's impossible.
absolutely impossible. So I think we'll have two armies. I think some firms are now saying, well, look, we'll have A, B, and C team, and the A team can go on a Monday, and the B team can go in on a Tuesday, and the C team go in on a Wednesday, and somehow they're sort of trying a bit of everything, a little bit of, and see how it all pans out. Because I don't think anyone said you work from home and there is no office anymore, we're going to have an office-free firm. Nobody has actually said seriously, or to any volume anyway. I'm sure there's always one person that said it, not that I'm aware of. They've all said, look, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to pan out, so let's just do a little bit of something for everybody, and we'll work our way through it. But you touched on, I think, and it's worth saying, mindfulness and well-being of your team. So what are you doing, Mark, to try and keep a handle on that they're okay back at home?
Well, I've got our people on our management team. We're talking to staff all the time. I'm personally Skyped a few of them and things like that, or Zoom. I don't really use Skype anymore, but so we've got a big support team that's just staying in touch with them all the time. I spent half my time on Zoom anyway before the virus. Like, that's just how we work. So, and I'm at the autistic end of this, so I'm quite happy in this is my kitchen, my living room, boardroom. It's everything. So I'm happy enough here. But even look, when I'm in the Philippines, I like working at home, particularly if I've got to work on something that requires deep work concentration. But equally, I'd like to spend a day or two each week in the office and getting around the staff and that. But I personally like a mix, and I'm not shy to tell the staff and clients in my last update a few weeks ago, I don't know how this is going to look in the months ahead as they start to open the Philippines. Like, I'm looking at an idea I had pre-COVID was actually possibly setting up lots of satellite offices with smaller, sort of 20 to 50 staff in an office instead of hundreds, and having the offices located closer to the staff's homes. So these were ideas we had before the virus that could actually play out quite well post-COVID as we try to get back to work. So I'm just telling people I don't know how it's going to work. We've just got to figure that out.
Yeah. So I think the outcome of the discussion is you've got to be flexible as a concept. You've got to say, look, because none of us know, let's keep our minds open. I was telling you, I remember, Mark, but I'll tell the guys because it was relevant. Just before this thing kicked off, one of the 2020 members, managing partner, and a lovely chap, he'd be 60 years old-ish, founder of the firm, in fact, and people did think he was, they thought very, very highly of him, and I thought he was a super chap. He is a super chap. Anyway, we were talking about flexibility, you see, and, people wanting to work maybe part-time, working from home, thinking about different things that you wear when you come to the office, what our approach is to social media, all this notion of flexibility. And anyway, we got to this discussion about working from home, and I remember him, and he does remember it. He said, over my dead body, Mark, is anybody not coming to the office at 9 and leaving at 5:30. That is exactly how it's going to be. And they gave all sorts of reasons why it was never going to work properly. Anyway, we spoke to him 2 weeks ago, just quite by chance, and I said, how's it all going? He said, damn, this working from home thing is not so bad, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I've been dealing with this for a decade, and the resistance of even having a remote team in the Philippines. It's like, but people are now forced into it, and it's like, I've been telling people for a long time, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to do it, but it's not that hard. And so the whole world's been forced into doing what we've been doing for a long time anyway. So,
Okay. So
let me crack through this, and
yeah,
I'll
go on now.
get into the nuts and bolts of it.
Lots
So
to
look,
learn.
so the solution, obviously, as we're talking, mate, working at home, to how we're going to deal with this. So I'll share some tricks and tips. Areas I'm going to cover 4 areas, right? Communication, accountability, tools, and information security. So your IT security, data privacy, all that stuff. Big hint here. Out of those 4 areas, I would say communication, accountability are where things go wrong most frequently for a remote team. However, your InfoSec is probably the one that's going to cause you the most harm if that goes wrong. So tools, I'm going to just hit that pretty quickly because I'll assume most firms are using the right tools. Ask a bunch of questions as we go. So if they come through, Gordon, just jump in and stop me, but try and make this as interactive as we possibly can. So communication, it sounds simple, but it's where I see firms go wrong. We can predict a firm that's going to fail with their offshore team, usually months before they actually fail, because we start to see communication issues creeping in with team members and things like that. And it's obvious what's going to come next. So I am surprised it is still a thing, but you must communicate with your team members. And this is even more so when they're working remotely. Running a team, whether it's remote or in your office, it doesn't really matter. It's not set and forget. So you need to talk to your staff. Email, man, this is get me ranting on email. It's not sufficient for complex issues, but I still see people overusing email all the time to deal with issues and things. Don't do it. Get on a call and talk through things. You don't, if you're typing or emailing, you miss important body language cues, and misunderstandings happen frequently through email. So minimize that. I've probably done webinars on this before where I've ranted about not using email for the wrong things. So
Mark, are you suggesting that where possible you should see as well as talk?
Absolutely.
So a Zoom would be, or Microsoft Teams or whatever is highly preferable.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so let me just ask a question then, Mark. So the problem I've got with talking with you on the phone, and you are, someone I enjoy talking with, is exactly that. I enjoy talking, and before it know, we're sort of 2 hours down into the day, and we've had a good chat, and you feel a lot better for it. But I've got 20 other staff I need to talk to today. So have you got any tips on how do you focus the agenda whilst not seeming to be heartless or cold in any way?
I do have that, and it's probably going to come up on accountability, actually. So it'll be around daily huddles and things like that. So it's quite a focused space of time to deal with things with the group on a call. It's one-on-one. I guess it just comes down to personal discipline. Look, my partner and I, we talk way too much on the phone. We're guilty of it just as much as anybody else. But the issue I see where email can let you down is I've seen it before where a firm will send long, complicated instructions to an employee, impossible to decipher. Whereas if you just get on a call, you can explain your way through it. And if you've got to back it up with something in writing, fine, but I wouldn't use typing and writing as your primary communication. I just think it's not good for the relationships. And as we talked about a few minutes ago, I think relationship is even more critical when you're dealing with a remote team, because things can go wrong. This is where we see firms fail, is they alienate the staff. Sometimes it's not intentional. They just forget they're there. You get on a call each day. It's a bit of an investment in time, but it helps. Also, I would not assume that your staff know what to do. So if you're issuing instructions, again, it's the same whether they're under your nose or whether they're remote. One of the things I always see, do you understand what I just explained to you? Everyone always says yes. So my default response is excellent, explain it back to me. And you see that look of horror come over their face. But it's, again, you're not going to get that if you're typing things either. So on the communication stuff, handle issues with your team and your clients early. Don't let things escalate. Now, at the end of the webinar, I'll share my email address, and if you want a copy of the book, again, I'm not trying to throw a pitch in here or anything, but my partner John wrote a whole chapter on how to manage an offshore team, and he goes quite heavy into the detail around the step by step on how to do a lot of this stuff, because we've been doing it a long time.
Is that the book Offshore or Die?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole chapter on this stuff. It's really, really good. I think it's the best chapter in the book. So yeah, I didn't write that. John wrote that. Yeah. So accountability is another area I see things go wrong, and it's I just see this a lot of people. Generally, not everybody. You do have your freaks, I know that, but if you took the averages, I think most people lack sufficient discipline if they're left to their own devices to produce. They tend to get they tend to wander or spin their wheels. People need to be held to account. And it's going to be up to you. You know, if you're a partner or a manager or whoever, you've got to keep your team accountable. And I've been through this myself in our own firm. Yeah, we had some roadblocks as a few years ago in our accounting firm, and we just weren't getting work out the door. And John was really busy. I was busy. The team were just getting stuck. And I remember for a limited period of time, because they really didn't like me interfering, but I did 2 daily huddles each day with them, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and I just put together a really quick and dirty spreadsheet, team member, what they were working on, and I got them to focus. It was really about, what are you going to focus on today, and then making sure they did it. And I personally took responsibility. They were quite annoyed with my interference for the first week or 2, but then once the jobs were clearing, they're like, oh, this is great. And from time to time, you still can get into that rut. And it's really just to get super focused and getting through that and getting obstacles out of the path of your staff to get the jobs done. But when I see this going wrong, it's usually because a manager, partner, whoever, what they've done is they've not monitored things properly. They're just assuming people are doing what they should be doing. But sometimes people are spinning their wheels and not producing. Sometimes they're just flat out doing the wrong thing, but it's more about just habits. So I would, as a partner or manager, take that personally responsible and make sure you know what your team are doing, because when they're remote, you don't know what they're up to. Have visibility on tasks. So we use different tools in our firm to, like Trello. We've got a whole board full of jobs, and it moves through different stages, so the whole team can see what each other's working on. So again, nothing's hidden, so have visibility on things in your team. Daily huddles are great for this stuff. If you're not aware of what they are, it's like a 10-15-minute meeting. All the staff get on the call and they go through one by one, what are they working on that day, or what were they working on the day before. And it's a point of focus, it's some accountability. And also other team members, if they're not talking enough, and we had an issue recently in our own firm where there was some misunderstandings in the accounting firm with a client, because we had 2 different employees. It was a large job. They were both working on different parts of the job, but didn't realize each person had been communicating different things with the client, so there was some confusion. So the huddle keeps everyone focused and everyone knows what each other's up to. And we've been doing those for years. And I found when I went through a stage where I just thought the huddles were a bit boring and not helpful and just a waste of time, we turned them off, and then things started going pear-shaped really quickly. John and I stopped. We didn't have visibility anymore, and it's a bit like brushing your teeth. It's a habit that you just do, and if you don't do it, you can really tell. So
Mark, to give the guys some guidance, in your experience, what's the ideal number for a huddle, or is there a range, or are the tax people different to the accounting people, or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so look, we're doing huddles with a team of 6 to 8 people each day, and it would go for about 15 minutes. So you don't want it going longer than that. It's supposed to be short, sharp. What are you working on? What are you stuck on? And then someone else in the team might have insight into that particular issue or that client and be able to speak up, and then they can take that issue offline to another call outside of that huddle time. So try and keep it short, sharp, and focused on time every day at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, so that's the other one I'd be looking at here. And again, it comes back to where I said earlier about, look, we got a little bit off track ourselves for a little while a few years ago, and I just put together a really basic spreadsheet. You've got to measure productivity, guys. Otherwise, you don't know if the staff are if they're stuck and they're just going around in circles and they're not putting their hand up for help. So you got to have a way to measure that, and there's a lot of ways to do it. We do turnaround time. You can have timesheets where you're tracking jobs. Do whatever you've got to do to know whether you guys are productive. Don't worry about what the latest and greatest tools are. Again, I'd go to pen and paper if I had to. I don't care. You just got to know if you're losing money or making money, and if people are getting stuck and they may not be telling you. Again, if they're working remotely, you won't know other than through metrics like this. So the other part of this is making sure that workflow is unblocked. Again, my partner, John, he can be a real bottleneck to getting work signed off and out the door. So make sure you know where your bottlenecks are and get them unblocked. Make sure if staff are stuck, you're getting things unblocked and getting them so they're productive and getting out of the way, letting them do their job. Again, the huddles and communication are really good for that stuff.
So Mark, let's just pick up on that one, because that's a real issue. It's always been an issue.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm one of your partners, and I'm a classic partner in that I'm a control freak. Nothing's going to go out the door unless I've seen it. These are my clients. So yeah, I can't really be doing with people sending my clients emails without me at least knowing what the hell's going on, and certainly not putting the firm into a position without me understanding. So I can't have my tax manager writing to my client saying, do this and you'll save 20% tax, or whatever it is. I need to know. So I am the block, and I'm not the only one listening today that's saying, oh God, I am that soldier. So how do you go about, particularly remotely, saying, Gordon, let go, for Christ's sake, let it go?
That's pretty much the conversation. It really comes down to a work habit, the way you work. And if you work like that, you're just going to limit and stifle what gets done. There's no trick to making that work. If you have to control everything to that level of detail, there's not going to be a smooth flow of work getting out the door. There's no way around it. Yeah.
Okay, so this remote team notion is going to highlight my shortcoming, isn't it? It's going to say, look, Gordon, you are the bottleneck. There is no question about it. So either you stay a bottleneck and cause all sorts of turnaround time delays, team dismorale, all of that, or you loosen up a bit.
And that's a really good point. It is a morale issue, because what you're saying is you don't trust your team. We have in our accounting firm, in the team there, they're always dealing with clients every day. The clients love them. They don't want to talk to me or John, but if it's a technical or high level issue, they'll talk to John. But for the day-to-day stuff, they just go straight to the team, and we use tools to handle the communication flow for that. But if it's a partner and they're involved in the day-to-day low-level stuff, well, you're just going to stifle things. And there's certain things you can't. There's no trick or hack to making it work. It's really a fundamental habit in how you go about your day-to-day and what you're going to get out of it. So again, like I have over the years, I've had people come to me at conferences, not your conferences, but I've had people come up to me and say, look, my because as you know, we're running an offshore operation, so I'd have someone come up to me and say, look, all my clients bring all their stuff in a shoebox every year, all paper, and just comes in a bag in a box. And how can you help me with an offshore team? I say I can't. There's things I can't do. There's no magic cure for that. You got to fix that workflow issue before you can worry about having an offshore remote team. So if the partner's all about that detail, well, they're going to stifle things. And like I said, you're really telling your team that you don't trust them to handle that day-to-day stuff. So I'm not talking about high level, putting the firm in a particular position. I'm talking about the day-to-day stuff, the stuff that wastes a lot of time.
Well, I'm talking to a lot of partners, obviously, just like you are, Mark. I seem to spend my life more on the phone than I've ever done. Very intense period for all of us, I think. And one of my questions is your to-do list getting larger or smaller? And I'm afraid to report, and I am one of those soldiers right now, because I enjoy speaking to people over the phone. As a result of speaking to people over the phone, I've probably got 3 things I've now got to do. So my to-do list is growing and not shrinking.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's got to be a point where you either say, well, if it's important, they'll come back to me, or I'm going to have a slightly different style of management and just try and get my emails off my to-do list. Otherwise, I'm going to drop a ball, and it could be a team member, it could be a client. Either way, it's not desirable, is it?
No, and look, I think at the situation we're all going through, there is a lot of grace between clients and the firm. John's inbox was out of control for a few weeks. It was stressing him out. So yeah, like I wouldn't beat yourself up too hard about it. I think everyone's going through a bit of this at the moment, but longer term, if you really have to deal with things remotely, and you'd need to look at some of these issues and how you go about the work. But in the situation we're in, I think everyone's a bit out of control. So I wouldn't be too hard about it.
Okay, let's have a look at the tools you've got then, Mark.
Yep. So look, I'm going to hit this real fast because the tools, I think I'm going to assume most people have got this handled. It is a straightforward issue, but I think I'll put it here just, like I say here, for the sake of completeness. Cloud-based accounting software, or if you don't use cloud-based software, that's fine. At least have a way to VPN into your server to work. So either one of those. If you don't have that, then it's pretty tough to migrate all your systems in the middle of a crisis. Maybe you've got time to do it, I don't know. Zoom, Skype, other such tools. I live on Zoom. I've been on Zoom for years. So that's what I would use there. We use Slack for an internal chat-based, as in typing. So if there's quick and short messages or file sharing within our team, we use Slack, and then we segregate that between different teams inside there. So that's been a good tool. There's a lot of others like it on the market. These are just examples. Now, one of the questions you raised earlier, which is this particular tool is fantastic for this, that we used a lot of TeamViewer. So the question you raised earlier is how do you train a trainee? How do you raise somebody up remotely? Well, we had to do that. In the early days of Frontline, when we pioneered the Philippines model, we were running our accounting firm. They had no Aussie experience when we did that. And so the way we did it was, it really was a bit like just sitting with somebody and walking them through a job. But we used TeamViewer, and TeamViewer, it's not like where you're doing a screen sharing. It's where you can actually control the other person's computer. So if we were doing a VAT return, we weren't having to explain the VAT return. It was all verbal. We would actually be in their computer. So John or myself would be in Australia, staff member in the Philippines. We would then be able to they could sit there and we're controlling their computer and walking them through all the different parts of a form or a reconciliation. I think that's a really good tool to use if you're training somebody, because you can actually just show them, a real, you're in their computer, in their system.
Well, actually, Mark, it's really interesting you picked up on that one, because separately, one of our members about 5 or 6 weeks ago was telling me that he uses this TeamViewer. I said, well, what's that then? He said, well, you know how your computer's not working very well, and then you ring up your IT support.
I think we've lost your audio, Gordon. Don't know if it's me or Gordon.
No, that's Gordon. That's gone. Mark, you're fine.
Gordon's gone. All right, I'll just continue yapping and he'll probably rejoin. So remind me that he was at TeamViewer. So he'll probably remember when he comes back. But it's a very good tool to use for if you're training up somebody in the early days. So I'll continue on. Trello is a good one for visibility of tasks across your team. So what we do in the accounting firm, you break down all the different stages of the job, from contacting the client, getting the documents in, getting everything set up, the job set up, done, and then through the stages of review and sign off. We're a different stage for each of those, and we'll have a card for each client. And inside the card, you can have a whole bunch of information. And then, hello, mate, you're back. Nah, still haven't got your audio. No, I can't hear you. And so in the Trello cards, what we then do is just grab them and drag them across the screen. So the team can see at any point in time. And then we can see also if there's a bottleneck, because you'll have all of them lined up under review where John needs to do a bunch of review to get the work out the door. So they're the tools. I'll move on from there. Do you want to test your audio again, Gordon, or shall we keep moving? Oh, you're back.
Have you got me now?
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome home. So
Okay.
we were talking.
Hold on, Mark.
All right, we're talking team viewer. Did you want to continue on that, or we'll just move forward through this?
Oh, only to make the point that he was using TeamViewer with his clients, because he was basically ringing them up and saying, I'm not taking your grubby C19 expenses and receipts anymore. You're going to have to take pictures. Let me go onto your computer and install QuickBooks or whatever, and Receipt Bank and such like. And he had 100% success rate. So at that time, with converting clients onto the cloud.
Well, that's the thing too, mate. If you've ever been unsure whether your client, and I've always been an advocate for your clients, don't care. They just want good service from you. Oh, we've lost Gordon again, I think, or just the webcam maybe. What was I saying? So yeah, your clients don't care. So if you've ever been curious how your clients will respond to some of these changes you're making internally in your firm, now's a great time to make major overhauls, because most people are going to be quite flexible and understanding. So I don't know if we've lost Gordon again. I think we have. I'll continue. So this bit I want to cover now is the bit that could cause you the most damage through your remote working, and whether it's offshore, onshore, doesn't matter. This is your high risk stuff now.
I'm back online, Mark. Don't worry, I've got your back here.
Good on you, mate. Okay, we'll get this done. Don't worry. So now this as an offshore business, we have to live and breathe this stuff every day. So we've got an IT team that oversees things, but I've been an advocate for making sure that you've got this handled now. So I'm gonna go through this. So this is the one that you want to really pay attention to, because this is the one where most firms it's a bit complacent with it sometimes. But right now, through the COVID situation, this is when criminal activity is going to be on the increase. I'm already aware of one serious fraud that a firm has suffered. It's not related to offshore or anything like that. It's just I'm aware of a firm. They had a password breach in their software, their tax software, and about 100. They found out because the tax authorities contacted the firm and said about 150 returns appeared to have been lodged fraudulently. So they had no idea that up to that point. So, and it appears that it was just crap passwords that caused that to happen. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Many people working unexpectedly and remotely. So if you've got regular IT controls, they're probably not going to be as robust as normal right now. So you could be exposed to serious risk if you're not across this stuff. That said, we've still got to keep working. So there is a balance to this. A pragmatic approach is needed. We had to do that in the Philippines. Now we had to, we had our clients sign waivers and things like that. It's like, look, if you want you guys working at home, I'm not going to, it's an uncontrollable risk for me. I can't control it. And so everyone had to take a bit of the risk on it. And then we still try and do our best to maintain, I guess, it's some good systems in IT, but it is limited when they're working at home, because if someone's going to steal from you, they're going to find a way. But I'm going to talk more about an external frauds and external risk here than rather than internal. But internal, you've got to watch.
Let me just come in for 2 seconds. One of our partners in the UK is Lilly, Lily, and they are running I think it's free for members, but if it's not free, it's very minimal, a check for any member that wants. So if anyone listening wants it, just send me an email and I'll forward it on to them to see what information is available for sale on the dark web about their firm. And I know some of you listening this morning have heard me talk about this before, but the managing director of Lilly had lunch with me about 3 months ago. So this was before C19 ever took effect. And over lunch, within 3 minutes, he showed me information about 2020 that was for sale on the dark web with sensitive passwords.
Yep, it's a wake-up call, isn't it?
Yeah, got my attention, Mark, and yeah, we pay him £30 a month or something now to stop that particular risk happening. I mean, as you say, if they want to, they will, but no one's that fussed about 2020, I hope. But what worries me, of course, Mark, is if I had an accounting firm, there might be some stuff on my computer which I really don't want publicised.
Absolutely. I know of a firm in the UK that had a breach a few years ago, and they had a breach, and they didn't know for a long time they'd been breached, and it cost them 6 figures and and reputation to clean it up. So it's a real issue out there. And I mean, I get dodgy emails from clients, accounting firm clients, on a fairly regular basis, where they've had a breach inside their email account. They don't even know. So now, when it comes to InfoSec, what I would suggest is just some basic fundamentals that'll give you that 80-20 outcome. So you're not going to get everything covered. So for the sake of today, I'm just going to hit a few of the key ones that'll get you most of the results in this area. Right? Human error. This is where 90% of your breaches are going to happen. Someone just screwing something up and doing something wrong. So one suggestion: sack your staff. Won't have to worry about it. Or be aware of what the main threats are and mitigate them as much as possible. So this will be your biggest area here, which is your social engineering and phishing attacks. That's where you get one example would be an email you might get with a link, and you think it's a legit thing, and you click it. Suddenly, someone's in your system, and you don't even know it. Other ones are where your firm might get a phone call, and that can happen. We've trained our staff to be very guarded in what information they give out on the phone, because you can get attacked in all sorts of ways. Okay, so this piece of software that we use now, some background on this, though. I don't have any commercial relationship with these guys. It was actually a client that introduced me to them as KnowBe4. And what it is they send out fake phishing scams to your staff. So you log all your staff emails into the system, and then their system will send out fake. And you're trying to see who clicks things that they shouldn't click. And now, some interesting data here. I train my staff often. We're strict on it. We're in their face about it all the time. Yet, when we ran this software on them, we still had a 30% failure rate. Now, that's roughly average. So the software that KnowBe4 have published their data, and over a large sample size, it's about 30% failure rate before you start implementing this stuff. So despite my training, they still failed, right? So your staff can't help but click things they shouldn't click. I think it's part of the Facebook, like. So they just click things. It's like a reflex. There's no critical thinking before they click stuff, and they can really expose your firm. So if you think your staff aren't clicking stuff, I promise you they are, and you don't know. So what we did to fix this is in our business. Now, this is just on my support team of about 40 staff, is we banned them from clicking any links at all. So it took the guesswork out of it, because a lot of them were just bad at figuring out things. So we just banned them, not allowed to click things anymore. They then had to send anything to IT and internal emails. So what we did when we were emailing, if we had to share a file or something like that within our team, what we would do is inside Slack, it was really high-tech stuff, but we gave a color code. So today's code might be gray or pink or white. So in the subject line for our internal emails, it had the color code, so we just knew that it was a legit email. Anything that came through from a colleague without that, nothing got clicked or opened. And so we took that from that 30% failure rate down to 0, doing just that, and it's been like that for over a year. So if you think your staff aren't clicking shit, I guarantee you they are, you just don't know about it. So get onto something here, because this is where you're going to be most exposed, and you won't know about it probably for months while some attacker has been playing around in your server. Second area, and this is where a breach happened recently to a firm that I know, and they found out when the tax authorities got in touch. Just terrible passwords. Most of them are easy to crack because most users, they either repeat the same password across multiple sites, and they're just too lazy to manage them properly, or they're so to do that, I personally use KeePass, which is a free password manager. There's a lot of these on the market, so just do some research. But I've been using these for years, and I can create long, complex. Most of my passwords are 30+ characters, complex passwords, and I have a unique password for every website. And I think I only have 2 passwords I store in my head. One is for KeePass, which is an encrypted database anyway, and the other one is just to open up Windows in the morning. Every other password is stored inside KeePass, so that enables every website to be unique, and the passwords are long and complex, so they're hard to crack. I'm not saying impossible, just hard. Now I can tell you as well, my background was in audit before, and if I went in on an audit job, on multiple occasions I was able to guess the password to a client accounting system. We did it just for fun, but because usually a password will be some combination of the company name or the employee name or some variant, right? And often they might put the year in it, right? So I'm hoping that yours is not Gordon 2020, right?
I'm pleased to tell you it's not, or anywhere near.
But I promise this is a really common issue, is just terrible passwords. And it's not even hard to deal with. So use a password manager and make sure your team are using good, long, complex passwords. I was going to say the second part of this would be using a second factor authenticator, which is when if you're not aware, you log on your email or some website, Xero, for example, and even the password's not enough. You've got to authenticate it from your phone or some other device. Banking, we use that in our banking and all those types of things. So wherever you can, turn on your 2-factor authentication. And if you do that, plus you don't click links that you shouldn't click, you're gonna cover a lot of your risk with just those things. Next thing is, I always assume we're going to get breached at some point. I don't assume that any of us are bulletproof. So make sure that your users have only enough access to your server or your system to do their job and no more. Right? It's called the concept of least privilege, because and that's why like system admins, your IT manager, CEOs, they're always the main target for an attacker because they've usually got the most access to a system. Right? So I assume that when, not if, your system is breached, that you're going to want to keep the damage as minimal as possible. So if someone gets through, and accesses your system through your account, if your staff has had a breach, then that way the attacker, it's like they're siloed inside the system. They can't go and wreak havoc through everything. All right. So that, to me, if you cover off on those 3 areas: access control, password management, and not clicking things you shouldn't click, you're gonna control a lot of your IT risk in those areas. So to sum up, the 80-20 of remote work itself, communication accountability is where things will frequently go a bit pear-shaped. The tools, I think, is pretty straightforward. Just have a look at the slide I shared and start researching if you're not using some of those things. But InfoSec is where you're probably going to find your biggest threat, especially right now. So COVID's no excuse for letting the guard down on this stuff. I know we're busy, but that's when you're going to be most vulnerable. So if you feel a bit lost and remote work is new to you, then if you focus on the things I've shared today here, that will be a good start for you. Now, to sum up, the last slide here, if I can help you, I'm willing to jump on a one-on-one call with anyone that's here today on this webinar. If you're stuck on specific issues regarding remote work, nothing to do with offshoring, I'm just doing it as a favor for the 2020 community. If you're curious about offshoring, drop me an email and I'll see if we can give you a hand. Now, and the book Offshore or Die, forget about offshoring for a moment. This is not what the webinar is about. There's a chapter in there that unpacks everything I've shared today in a lot more detail. So it's applicable for remote teams, not just offshore teams. So that's my email. If you need a hand, drop me a line and I'll do what I can. So Q&A, what do we got? 5 minutes, I think. Where do you want to go from here, Gordon? I can't hear you.
There we go, you can hear me now. Technical details like pressing the microphone on, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a few questions. I'll manage them for a second then, Mark. So morning, Manda, or afternoon or evening. Is Zoom free to use, Mark? Do you happen to know, yes or no?
Yes, but with limitations. So
Yeah.
I used the free one for years. I now use the paid one, and the main difference is it doesn't cut out after a certain time period if you're on a long call.
That's
It's
exactly
cheap.
right. Zoom has 40 minutes for free, but they've released that for the time being, so you can effectively use it for free, but it's not expensive. We've signed up to Zoom most recently because GoToWebinar, the platform that we're running on today, is very good, but we needed another option. Microsoft Teams, another question's come through from Microsoft Teams, is also, I hear, very good. And we're going to do a webinar on Microsoft, not just Microsoft Teams, SharePoint and other bits of Microsoft that we're already paying for, but not used. Google have come out with, Mark, have you come across the Google Meetings platform
Google
yet?
Hangouts. Google Hangouts.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, we used it years and years ago, weren't big fans. It was pretty clunky. Microsoft Teams, I'm well aware of it. I just don't use it. I use Zoom, but I haven't heard anything bad about it. So they're probably all fairly equal. I don't know about Google these days, though. It was clunky when I used it years ago.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm hearing the same thing about Microsoft Teams, and I've got a plan put together training people how to use it. And then we've got another interesting question, which I'm sure you'll just say, well, you just got to suck it up. I've got a problem with managing emails. I've got about 600 in my inbox. Oh, ouch!
I have the answer. No, Control A, delete, and if it's
Delete the lot.
really important, it'll come back.
Yeah. I have to let you in a little secret. I did send an email back years ago where I was in that position, and I sent an email to all of my contacts and clients that I was in touch with regularly, and said, it was a white lie. I said, my computer's crashed and I've lost all my emails. If there's an outstanding email, could you send it through?
Yeah.
Anyway, that saved you. I think you can get away with that once in your career. And
yeah, they call it email bankruptcy. So
yeah,
just bankruptcy, right? And so, but look, I did a webinar with you.
Just to say I've got too many. I've deleted a lot.
A serious answer though is I did a webinar with you last year on this, how to golf more and office less, I think it was called, and it was predominantly around how a partner can better manage their time. And up until a couple of weeks ago, my PA handles all my email. I don't deal with that much email. So she's now migrating to Canada, so I'm actually dealing with my email again, but I don't get a lot of email. John, my partner, gets a lot, but he's got PAs handling it. Again, you just delegate what you can and have someone sort of filtering out the stuff that can be easily delegated.
That's exactly right, Mark. My wonderful PA, Chris, she takes all my emails. Right now, because of the unique circumstances, I also get all the emails because she doesn't work afternoons, and sometimes I need to be more timely than. But right now, it's probably not ideal, but up to we'll go back to it. She gets every email before I do, and she only sends through the ones that she thinks I either need to read or do something of. In fact, she says it's an email, Chris info, so I know she thinks I just need to read it and then delete it. And then she's got another one, Chris action, which she believes I need to do something about. Well, that's saved my bacon I don't know how many times.
Yeah, I think if you've got 600 sitting there, you're just going to have to either declare bankruptcy on it or spend a weekend clearing it. There's no trick to some of this stuff.
There isn't. Mark, you're a star. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you keep going well down under, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Absolutely, can't wait. I'm looking forward to getting back to the UK. So
it'll be nice to welcome you back here. Take
all
care,
right,
buddy.
see you, mate. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye now.